There was a young girl named Ella who had recently moved into a new house with her parents. The house was old and creaky, but it had a certain charm that her parents couldn't resist. They had only been living in the house for 2 weeks and were still getting used to the strange sounds that the house made at night. One night, Ella's parents had gone to visit their neighbors, leaving Ella alone in the house. They had taken the baby monitor with them, but unfortunately, the power shut down in their absence. Ella was fast asleep when she heard a noise that jolted her awake. She sat up in her bed, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. Suddenly, she heard the unmistakable sound of a wall slowly cracking. Ella's heart raced as she tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination. But then she saw a scary silhouette of a man's figure on the wall, and she knew that something was terribly wrong. The silhouette grew larger and larger until it was almost as tall as the ceiling. Ella's body trembled with fear as she realized that the figure looked like the previous owner of the house, the old man who had sold the house to her parents. The man's face was twisted in an expression of rage and malice, and his eyes seemed to bore into Ella's very soul. She wanted to scream, but her voice was caught in her throat. The silhouette made it look like the man slowly cringed at her. Suddenly, she heard a faint whispering sound coming from the wall next to her. At first, she thought it was just the wind, but then she realized that it was a voice. It was a low, raspy voice that seemed to be coming from deep within the walls of the house. "Ella," the voice whispered, "come to me." Ella's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the voice of the old man. She tried to scream, but no sound escaped her throat. She felt paralyzed with fear, unable to move as the voice grew louder and more insistent. "Come to me, Ella," the voice repeated. "Come to me, and I will show you things you've never seen before." Ella tried to resist the voice's call, but she found herself slowly getting out of bed. She felt as if she was being pulled towards the wall, as if something was drawing her towards it against her will. She took a few tentative steps towards the wall, her body trembling with fear. As she approached the wall, she saw that the surface was shimmering, as if it was made of stone. The voice was coming from inside the wall, and Ella felt a strange sense of curiosity as well as terror. "Come closer, Ella," the voice whispered. "I won't hurt you. I just want to show you something." Ella knew that she shouldn't go any closer, but she couldn't resist the pull of the voice. She took another step towards the wall, and suddenly, a hand shot out from inside it and grabbed her by the wrist. Ella screamed in terror as she was pulled into the wall, disappearing from sight. Inside the wall, Ella found herself in a dark, damp tunnel. The walls were lined with thick, slimy moss, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. She could barely see a few inches in front of her, but she could hear something moving in the darkness ahead. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the old man, but he looked different now. His skin was gray and mottled, and his eyes were sunken and hollow. He reached out to Ella, his fingers clutching at her hair. "Ella," he whispered, "you've come to join me." Ella tried to pull away, but the man's grip was too strong. She felt as if she was being pulled towards him against her will. The man's face twisted into a hideous grin as he pulled her closer, and she could see that his teeth were sharp and pointed like a predator's. He reached for her arm and started to eat it. Ella screamed it out, but her nervous system did not feel any pain. Suddenly, Ella woke up in her bed, gasping for breath. She looked around the room, but everything seemed to be back to normal. She realized that it was just a nightmare. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like, and do not forget to hit the subscribe button.